And we're live today, it looks like. Another
Yeah.
Learning Circles Hangout. How are you, Craig?
I'm good. How you doing, Enzo?
Doing good. I don't know where Brent is.
Yeah, he was just here and then he disappeared.
He's busy. That's
Yeah.
how.
As we were just saying, Fridays are getting busier and busier. They used to be pretty good days to off ramp into the weekend,
Yeah.
and I think you and I were both working up until clicking on the record button. So such
Yes.
as it is.
Yeah, I
Um,
think he's probably having a beer somewhere without us, and he said he was busy.
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
That sounds about right. Unfortunately,
I've heard he'll do that.
he's always doing the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about today?
So one thing that I thought, I mean, we could talk this week, I thought was, I don't know if it's just me, but every conference that I go to now, from A to D to E-Guild to Training Mag, everybody, there are several sessions, not everybody, there are several sessions, and people talking about storytelling and the power of storytelling.
Oh yeah.
So it seems to be, I don't know, I don't remember it being that popular. I remember a few of us instructional designers trying to do that and thinking more proactively about bringing stories into our training and all, but I don't remember it being so prevalent everywhere we go. Like every conference you go, there is at least 1, 2, sometimes 5 sessions about
Yeah. Well,
storytelling.
I think there are probably a couple of reasons. There are probably a couple of reasons for that. One, to start off with, there actually have been a couple of people like Kathy Moore, Tom Kuhlman, who've always been talking about, telling stories through e-learning and actually leading the your learner through an experience. I think the thing that kind of dovetails with their efforts is the idea of actually creating learning experiences, which is what we say now, as opposed to, I don't know, creating e-learning or training in the past. But I think that e-learning and other digital learning experiences are competing in a way with a lot of the things that were created that are created now. Gaming is becoming something that is not sort of a fringe thing. It's something that's actually fairly mainstream, and those experiences are kind of competing in a way for screen time with what people are used to doing. And I think we're seeing a lot of people are actually taking interactive experiences with them, and they want their learning to be similar. I think the final thing is that as a lot of us get proficient with our e-learning authoring tools, we're able to bring in video and things like that. I think people trying to use branching scenarios and having people feel the effects of their choices is a very popular thing. So the thing that's missing, of course, is that not everybody is a good storyteller, right? Like and I think that's one of the big problems we're seeing is that people, they have the tools to actually realize things and put them on the web and have people do interactions, but they realize that the very simple fact of telling a story is very difficult. I think anybody who has watched the podcast Serial or listened to the podcast Serial in the past couple months, realizes that that podcast is basically as popular as it is because it's a really compelling story. That fact that it's actually true. So
I think you're right. One of the things is that we do have, especially nowadays, with so many devices, so many types of experiences, a more we compete for our learners' attention more than we actually did in the past. Right now, you can as recent as a few years ago, you can watch a show and follow it interactively on your device, showing different things like commentaries and things like that about the show that you're watching, the episode that you're watching now. The TV, the entertainment industry is crazy with things that you wouldn't have a few years ago, like streaming shows that are exclusive for the web that are actually super popular and all that kind of stuff. And so I think more and more people are seeing in our field, besides the experts that always advocated for that, more people are seeing the power of telling a story instead of going to the default. After this course, you should be able to. I remember I actually attended Kathy Kenny Bean's session on storytelling. Very recently, and she, she was talking about we can deliver the after this course you should be able to. Of course, not her own words, but You should be able to blah, 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 but in a different context, making it more appealing for the learner. If you really have to show that, the objectives of the course, make it so that they can bypass it if they want to, but try to make even that appealing. All right, make the goal appealing. You know, this course is about blah, blah, blah. No, saying, have you ever experienced something like this? Well, you're in the right place. Now we're going to show you how character X, Y, and Z went through the same thing, right? Those are some typical ways of telling a story. You're bringing your learner in instead of passively giving them words on the screen that many times actually get audibly narrated exactly as you see on the screen by the narrator, which is another pet peeve of many of us, right? Instructional design.
I think, of course, when you get into talking, about listing objectives plainly, as sort of being a stumbling block to good storytelling, or that you can actually replace that with a very clever storytelling technique. It's very funny when you tell some instructional designers that they sort of stiffen because we've all been taught the objectives go up front. You let people know what to expect. You make sure that you don't use the verb understand or you'll get your hand smacked. All those things are they're good to kind of basically have a little bit of a structure around the way that you inform your learner, but it doesn't make for a very exciting product. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
The objectives are for us, right? It's like when you watch a TV show or a movie that you're into. You don't read the script. You're not reading the script as in X, Y, and Z walks in and acts surprised. You see the actor acting surprised. You don't see the script. The script is there for the actor, for the crew, for the production to see what the product is. So the objectives are definitely important, right? We have to have that list. But do we have to present it to the learner like we are taught in school after this, blah, blah, blah? So I think even at that level, it's important to bring in a story when you can. Of course, many times we are busy. We have to get things out like in 2 days, and boom, we just put what we can out there. And sometimes that is what it is. Which is
a really good point, Enzo, that storytelling, weaving a good story, or rather weaving your content into a good story, that's a time-intensive, project, usually, unless you're a gifted storyteller by your own right. And I know I myself am not. I need a lot of time and a lot of meditation to do that. I want to pause real quick because I noticed that Marvin Williams is in our is on right now. Hey, Marvin, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Craig, how are you doing?
All right. Marvin, actually, for those of you who don't know, Marvin Williams and I have known each other via the web for, I want to say, 2 years now, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so we actually got a good question from Marvin regarding accessibility and 508 compliance at the end of 2 sessions ago. And I wasn't able to make the last session, but we had a discussion about that, and I know that Enzo and Brent talked about that. And some of our viewers, actually, if I recall correctly, I know that...
asked about 508 and how.
Yeah, I know one of our viewers, KJ Uribe, she was talking about some of the stuff that you guys discussed last week regarding Section 508 and accessibility, and she was like, I wanted to talk at the screen, I wanted to respond to what people were saying. Of course, it's recorded, so. Look, we're welcoming Marvin Williams to the Learning Circle, and Brent Schlenker, the ringmaster, finally makes it in after throwing his computer out the window.
Yeah. Normally the one that starts the stuff for us, so it's a desperate move to let me start this, Grant.
Enzo and I were like, well, I guess we should just go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and click it. Yeah, let's click the button.
It's nice that it works without me, so that's good.
That's true. Right? We don't need you anymore. We've got Marvin.
Thank you.
We've got Marvin. We've got three. We have a quorum, a minion of instructional design-minded folk. So I want to catch you guys up. Enzo and I were having a nice chat about storytelling in e-learning.
And how it's getting even more popular, it seems. At least it's my impression.
I agree with that. So what are your thoughts on that, Marvin? What do you think about storytelling in e-learning?
I think that storytelling is definitely it's a great thing. It's a great way to be able to engage the learner. Right now, one of the really big things that it's funny because you've got folks who are looking at this like this is something completely and totally brand new, but the idea of engaging your audience it's like this new thing, and absolutely, storytelling is another way to be able to engage your audience. If you've got individuals who are trying to get through material and they're not able to just get through it, not even looking at an accessibility standpoint or a disability standpoint, but they're just not able to get through it because it's just boring, then storytelling provides some way for them to at least be able to hold on to perhaps get at least some of what you're looking for. E-learning is a fantastic tool, but one of the things that people have to look at, something that I know on my campus we're dealing with, and a lot of campuses are dealing with, is making sure that you've got that you've definitely got a way to include all of your students, to include everybody. While I've got students who will they will register with our campus office for services with students with disabilities. Not everybody will. So we tell professors, we tell everybody, look, you've got folks out there who won't necessarily disclose that they've got a disability. So you still have to plan for them to be able to get the material. And when you get out to the work world, I try to tell my students it's important that you tell your human resources folks, that you tell your managers, go ahead and disclose, do this. It's a personal choice. Not everybody wants to, but it can definitely impact what happens, because if I go into a training, I'm getting training for where I am, and I just can't get it. I can't access it. Then I've got a problem, and my employer's responsibility really doesn't kick in until my employer's responsibility to accommodate me doesn't kick in until I notify them that I'm having a problem.
Would you say, Marvin, would you say that you say e-learning is a wonderful thing and can be used to meet people where they are, but as Enzo and I were talking about shortly before you and Brent got on, one of the reasons that storytelling has become hot, or at least we think in e-learning, is because it's competing with other forms of multimedia experiences, particularly transmedia learning experiences that are out there, or transmedia experiences, I should say. From the standpoint of someone who's concerned about accessibility, I feel, and this is my opinion, I feel like some of the techniques and things are brought to the fore that are now possible via e-learning or via transmedia learning, maybe leave accessibility in the dust or kind of push it to the side. Do you feel like that is a danger?
Oh yeah, that's definitely what happens. We've got online courses, and it's funny, there's universities right now that are being sued because their online courses are not, they're either not captioned or they don't have adequate captioning. So the difference between the two being, having captions, it's kind of like if you turn on the closed captions when you're watching the evening news, and there's all kinds of garbage in there. It's just they're not refined, they're not checked. So the law actually states that you have to have good, useful captions. So people are having to go back and clean those captions up. So if you've got a class that you're doing, and maybe you've got captioning for the class, have you checked that captioning to make sure that it's accurate, or did you upload to YouTube and throw your captions on there, download your caption file, and then say, okay, it's done?
Right.
But even beyond that, there's other things where as you integrate in more media, you need to be aware of the possibilities for access barriers. So if you were to have, maybe you want to show a video clip to talk about a process, and maybe the video has no audio at all, so it's not a talking head thing. It's not, I'm walking you through this process, or I'm talking you through this process, but I'm actually showing you the process, and I'm showing you the steps. You can have individuals who are visually impaired who you have to think about it. They're not going to be able to see this video.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that?
Or infographics. I mean, what are, for example, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how to create an infographic, and I have at conferences, how to create infographics and animation videos like using GoAnimate, or infographics using tools like Pick-to-Chart, for example, that are free out there, and you can create infographics easily if you have something quick to get out there. You can create animations easily if you have something quick to get out there. What would you do for accessibility for things like that, where you're telling a story visually with data, with information, and all that kind of stuff, and you want everybody to get that story? Because one thing that the pictures do, for example, is provide one common view. Like everybody or most people would pretty much see the same thing, depending on how you have depicted that. If you have done a good job, everybody will get the same message, or very close to the same message, as opposed to interpreting text, if that makes sense. So, what do you do for accessibility with that kind of stuff?
Well, we recently had to deal with that with an e-learning package that the university purchased to take a look at California's whole Yes Means Yes initiative. So looking at basically a training package for students regarding sexual harassment, things of that nature. And so there were infographics that the organization that we purchased this from gave us, and of course the infographics just came across as pictures because of the nature of because of the way that you could well, the way that infographics are nested pictures. Again, storytelling via pictures, it makes it difficult to even go through and say, well, I'm going to use alt text to be able to describe this. That's going to be some long alt text. So what you almost have to think about is, if the idea is to use the infographic to display this graphically, you need to make sure that you've got some other way to be able to provide that information, which is not necessarily going to rely on the user's ability to see. So it's hard. The thing that's really hard about it is that you can't necessarily make making an infographic accessible is exceedingly difficult. Because again, you're trying to do everything with pictures,
right?
And sometimes you can't do everything with pictures.
Let me tell you one thing that I did, and I'm sure we could go even an extra mile and more and more. But I was talking earlier about showing, instead of going to, at the end of this course, you shall be able to blah, 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 telling a story. I decided to tell that story visually with an infographic. So the objectives, everything that you learn in the course, I did commissioned a infographic that summarizes all the main points of the course and has takeaways from the course. The course is, however, a video-based course where we have video and audio at the same time. So the infographic, in a sense, is only depicting what is already said in the course with video and audio. So in a sense, it is accessible. Does that make sense? One thing complements the other.
As long as the key for accessibility is making sure that you can get the information equally if I don't have one of those there. So if I don't have text, how am I going to get the information? If I don't have the infographic, how am I going to get the information? If you're using video, one of the things which people don't realize is available is audio descriptive service. And audio descriptive service is it's like captioning for folks with a visual impairment. And people don't realize that actually with the same law that looks at closed captioning, it's the paragraph beneath. So audio description has been with us for a long time. It's just nobody's really looked at it, and nobody's really thought about how we can do this. Well, in the modern age, it's easy enough to do. So it might be having, if you've got, if there's something which is nonverbal which is going on, then it's in a video, then it's possible to actually have someone describing what is going on with the nonverbal interaction, and have that actually embedded in the video.
So, sort of like a narrator or a...
Exactly like that. Exactly like that.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. I've been, I'm doing and you guys get ready to drink, I'm going to say XAPI. So I've been doing an XAPI design cohort through ADL. And one of the bounties that we have, one of the subject areas, is merging transmedia learning with the Experience API, ostensibly using the XAPI to report on the learning experiences across platforms. And I have to say there's some really impressive examples of transmedia learning out there, and I think they're getting better all the time. Those and things like the augmented reality learning platform-driven situated documentaries, like Dow Day via Aris. We'll include these notes later, by the way. One of the things, though, I have to say, like, these are getting further into multi-device, multi-platform learning experiences that we're getting people really excited about, but I don't know. No, I mean, we're barely getting these created as they are. I'm not sure how accessibility, or I don't know how people are thinking of accessibility in these things, and it does concern me. I think, on the one hand, the multi-platform, multi-device proposition might make it easier for people with certain assistive disabilities, or people who would need certain assistive technologies to actually have better access to content. But I'm not sure if it's being designed in that way. So.
Well, I think that if you look at, take a look at what the key parts of your design are. If you're requiring that somebody interact with a touchscreen, and you have to ask yourself the question, what happens if I can't interact with the touchscreen?
Right.
If you're requiring that somebody select something with a mouse, you have to ask yourself, what if I have somebody that's not going to be able to use a mouse with this thing? So it's always, if you're insisting on one particular thing, you have to ask yourself the question, what happens if that access method, if that modality for delivering information is not available?
Yeah. So it makes me think, one of the projects that I've had under my hat for a long time is actually, there's a local, I live right outside of Washington, D.C. There are a lot of Civil War parks, which are basically walk 20 feet, and here's where a bunch of people died. So, here's a memorial to it. So I'd love to actually string a couple of them together and actually have a situated documentary about a particular battle, and have people go from place to place with a mobile device, and then either experience audio or video, based on their geolocation. And it's something I've been looking to kind of work on for a while. I have wondered, though, a lot of this is going to be activated via, access to a touchscreen, which, is going to be a lot of learning in the coming years, I think, while we're in this touchscreen-based technology boom right now until something else comes along. How is the accessible technology community kind of meeting that issue? Because that's something that I think has taken hold over society in general, basically the touchscreen as window into experience. Like, how is that replicated or countered?
Well, you've got a lot of folks who are looking at things like VoiceOver on iOS and TalkBack on Android as providing basically eyes into what's going on with being able to access touchscreen devices. So for talk primarily iOS or Android, then that's what we're looking at. My apologies to my friends with Windows phones or Windows mobile devices.
You have friends with Windows phones? No, you don't.
I don't. But I just.
Those people don't exist. I mean, that's like
random now.
Like unicorns, and I don't know. No.
Well, but
Packers fans. I don't know.
If you appropriately design and make sure that you've at least got that tie-in, that helps. But what I usually tell folks is, if you're really seriously concerned about this, best thing you can do is ask. Now you're right by. You've got National Federation for the Blind right by you.
That's
so
true.
I would say best thing to do would be to tell them what you want to do and see if you can come in and see if you can talk to somebody about it, to where they'll be able to say, well, maybe what you can do is have people follow two paths for the same experience. One is going to be your touchscreen based, which is going to get you, I could tap over here on this section of the battlefield and find out what was going there, or tap there and do that. And another might be more voiceover friendly or screen reader friendly, which would say, well, there's this and then there's this. And another thing to consider if you're going to do that is, what if I've got an individual out there who's getting this information but they're hearing impaired? So if I'm just going to have speech, then perhaps I need some captioning under that to go as well. So and this is again where the key is to take a look at the modalities that you're going to be using, take a look at how you're going to access, and then ask yourself, what happens if that access venue or that access is not available?
Marvin, I've been really, thank you, by the way, for stopping by. This has been great.
Oh, sure.
I was really pleased to get your message after the session before last session, and I was like, we got to get him in here because over the years we've been talking kind of about and around learning technology. I figured, okay, we got to get this guy on.
Well, I appreciate it. It's good to be able to actually provide some provide some input, because for a lot of the stuff that I see, I deal with folks who are on perhaps your end of this, and then I start asking the questions, because there's usually somebody like me that's sitting in the back of the room that's feeding the other person the questions. And just asking companies, well, what is it, what are you going to do as far as accessibility? Well, we take that very, we really consider it, and it's important to us. Okay, so then we ask for the VPAT, and then we get a VPAT. What people don't understand is that I'll check a VPAT. I will check it, and I will go through, and I'll come back to you and say, you realize that this VPAT is bogus, right? That it's completely and totally false. So then we need a real VPAT. We need, an honest one. I'm not gonna come after you and your family. I'm not Liam Neeson. I just want an honest statement of what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Hey,
I think it's cool just to know somebody that specializes in the assistive technology now. So where can we find you, and how often can we ping you with questions?
Yes. You're exposed now, Marvin. You can't hide.
Well, I am on Twitter. I'm at MWilliamsAT. I can put that in the chat room. And I've got my own blog, which is life and time and everything allow me to update. I need to do some more updates. But I've got my own blog where I look a lot at accessibility and assistive technology from a broad standpoint. So I try not to. A lot of the assistive technology world focuses on K-12 education, and it's a limited scope. So you can't just focus on that. Higher ed is important, but also the work world is important.
Yeah, people go to work after that, and then what do you do?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So, but I'll put the link for that in the chat room.
Thanks. Hey Brent, I need you to. Oh, cool. AT Playground. Hey Brent, I need you to catch me up. What did I miss last week?
You missed a conversation about.
You missed the conversation about this.
What happened? How?
It was a hot topic, let me tell you. I mean, it was heated. You would have loved it.
Sorry.
I was away actually dealing with XAPI. I was hacking away at the underbrush of our specification. Yep.
Yeah, I actually listened in on one of the cohort videos, and you did a good job. I liked it. It was good.
Oh, did you? Yeah, I tried to do a better one yesterday. We had our big week 2 video, and we actually are doing it twice now. So we're doing it at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Thursday from here till May 14th. And we're doing that because part of our cohort is in Asia and Europe and Australia and Africa, actually all of those continents, and they, it's inconvenient to try to connect at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when that is 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time and 3 a.m. in, say, Thailand. So
nice.
If you're Thai and you're interested in XAPI, well, you're one of a few people, but you shouldn't have to get up in the middle of the night.
I'll just text message in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
Marvin, I just realized that I wasn't following you on Twitter. I don't know how I wasn't, but now I'm following you, so now you're in trouble.
I appreciate that, and that just means that I can call off the hit squad that I had coming for you, so it's all good. It's a win-win. It's a win-win.
Brent, we'll talk to you.
Oh man. So I wanted to make sure. I know we're slightly time shifted. Are we wrapping up or Enzo, are you dropping off? I know that.
I wish we could go on longer because I think we had a lot to talk about visuals and stuff like that too still. But maybe we continue next week about visuals.
All right.
We're left off where visuals are popular and why they're
popular. You mean
popular.
next week or in 2 weeks?
2 weeks. Next time we'll do it.
Yeah, in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Do you guys want to continue right now?
I'm good.
Oh, okay. You got to drop off?
Yeah. Enzo's got to drop off.
Okay.
He's a very important person, and he's got things to do. You know.
Well,
All right. See you, Enzo.
I can continue, and I'll make time for this.
All right. All right. Well, then we feel pretty special. Then I'm sorry. All right.
You're welcome.
So one of the things that I want to bring it back to storytelling, but to kind of get into what you were talking about in terms of the visual aspect, and that will kind of take us into what we originally meant to talk about. So one of the things, in addition to the storytelling, the art of storytelling push that I see, is people getting involved in, or trying to get involved in, graphic design for their e-learning courses. And I think I know where this comes from. I think we're having many more people, become mature users of authoring tools, and as such, when you master an authoring tool, you can now create and host something, right? So, which means that you're in control of actually putting out content to a certain degree, which is great, except for the fact that if you don't have both a sense for the aesthetic and for user interface design, or for user experience design, or for graphic design, you're going to have a bad time, and so will your users. So, I think that's, as we have more one-person shops, we're going to see a lot more people focusing on how do I draw right.
So I also got to say that besides that, I think the visual storytelling part of things is becoming easier and more accessible to people that are not graphic designers, because tools are becoming easier to use, and they are providing a lot more. You can never replace a graphic designer, but for rapid authoring, you can create a fairly decent video with tools like GoAnimate. Sketch, and stuff like that. You can create an infographic in if you have all the data and facts and stuff like that you need. In 30 minutes, you can create an infographic with tools like Easily or Pictochart and stuff like that, or Infogram. So I think that we're at a place where there's an abundance of tools out there that will let you a lot that before you did need a graphic designer dedicated, even for the most basic things, or you needed to know graphic design, but now you can do way more with tools just out of the box, because there's an abundance of that.
Oh, go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, I was just going to add, this is actually a conversation I've had with a lot of people recently, for varying reasons, but I think, back in the 80s, right? Desktop publishing became a huge thing, and typesetters and desktop publishing people were going through the exact same process of, oh my gosh, now, because of this new software and the new, Macs and all this kind of stuff, everybody's going to think they're a desktop publisher, and what are we going to do? Well, designers still have jobs. Really good desktop publishing is still necessary and required, but yet there's also, that everybody can still do it. It's just the level of quality, and I think we're going through the same process, right? Where, oh my gosh, all of these tools are coming out, and there's this mild panic of, oh my gosh, should everybody be creating learning? Because what if they do it wrong, and what if they, the learners aren't going to like it, and all of this kind of stuff. And I just kind of wonder if it's much ado about nothing at a certain point, where why isn't it a good thing that everybody now has access to a tool to create some content? Let's put aside instructional design, let's put aside the whole learning conversation, and now all of a sudden the ability to create digital content is more accessible now than it has ever been. And it just so happens that most of the content that people are putting out there, people are finding that it's instructional, right? People are learning stuff. People are watching YouTube and they're learning stuff, how to fix something, how to dress themselves, how to pick out a new watch, how to, do your laundry, how to fold a shirt in 3 steps or less, I mean.
I think Brent, you're raising a good point. Like, a lot of the content that's being put out there is telling you how to do things, but I think the issue that we're coming to, and I think this is the problem that journalists, brought up when their turf was threatened. It's exactly the same problem. It's like, wait a minute, we're experts in this. You guys are just doing stuff just because you have a little channel, or you have a blog, or you have YouTube account. Well, all of a sudden you can become a journalist, and all you need is actually journal ethics and journalism to do that. Oh, what I will say is this, though. The one thing I will give journalists, and I will give instructional designers, obviously, I will give graphic artists, is that you can create content. That doesn't mean that what you're creating is going to be worth consuming. So it is not that a blogger can't be as good a news source or better than a journalist. I think the recent Brian Williams fiasco has shown us that. I would say that there is a matter, and this brings us back to, I think, what Enzo was bringing up about, maybe a draw or like a new thing, people being attracted to learning more about how to be better at visual design for their courses, is that people are realizing that they can make content, and they can make content that's good if they can manage to do it from an instructional standpoint, but it may not be visually appealing. And more than it just being visually appealing to, just so people would want to look at it, that visual design should integrate into the course itself.
And I think, too, as aptitude meets the actual availability of tools that make it possible. So we already have a bunch of instructional designers that are competent at filtering out what is not necessary and focusing on what is necessary, because they can write good objectives, they can write good stories and all that kind of stuff. And before, they had to, even for the smallest job, outsource at times to a graphic designer. But now they are empowered to, if they need something really quickly done, like an infographic, a simple one, or a simple animation, they can do it themselves because there are tools out there that make it possible for them.
Well, let me just play devil's advocate here, though. So who you mentioned, one of the phrases you used, Craig, was, just because you can make a design doesn't mean it's worth consuming, right? And who gets to define what's worth consuming?
Me. In every platform, it's me. I'm so glad you asked, Brent. It's me. It's always been me. No, I mean, I think it's the same people. So with the democratization of creation, comes I think a greater focus on the weight and the worth of people who are consuming. So that's everybody. It's not. I don't think it's me as an instructional designer who says, "Oh, your content is crap because it wasn't done." Like Enzo and I were talking about early on, because your objectives weren't listed up front, or you used the verb understand in one of them. Got heaven forfend. I think that what's the worth, what's the measure of the value of what you've created is how many people are benefiting from it and how they're using it. It's why things like Instructables, are really popular, or YouTube videos, as you pointed out, Brent. Like, the simplest, best way to teach somebody something other than them being there with you is kind of showing them step by step how to do it, and then allowing them to review it and go back over it and maybe look at stuff.
Are people? First of all, are people consuming from the target audience and maybe outside of your target audience? Are people consuming it? Are they providing feedback that they are learning from it?
Yeah.
Or even providing feedback on how to make it better, for example? In the case of learning, when I create an infographic for learning, I'm dictating. I'm an instructional designer, and here is an infographic that is the summary of your course. You will consume it, or you will at least see it. Does that make sense? It sounds bad, but you will see it because you're my target audience, and I'm assigning that to you. Now, whether it is instructional to them, they will decide. They will see the benefit of it or not, and they will let me know, depending on the culture of your company, if it is or not.
Let me ask you this, Enzo. How are they going to let you know? Because you as an instructional designer within a corporation are, much as I think the rest of us are uniquely, or you're suited to getting that feedback. I think people who put stuff out on YouTube, well, they get feedback, but maybe not all the best. Or people who put Instructables out, like, they do get feedback, but they're really doing it for the love of, and or for the I guess, for the joy of actually putting out something that helps people, but they don't necessarily get feedback. Let me ask you this. Does the average instructional designer who creates a course within a corporate environment, do they get feedback that they then feed back into their course design? Do you think that happens?
I don't think it happens as much as we want it to, but I think what you're seeing, I think what you're seeing in the real world, like when you talk YouTube or Instructables or whatever, I honestly believe that those creators, at least the ones that I've talked to, I mean, I don't know if you've been following the Litmus blog at all, but I've been a little bit obsessed lately about YouTube and the learning and the different aspects of how people are using it. And the YouTubers that I have had a chance to talk to about this kind of stuff, they absolutely take the feedback. Most of them are actually doing it as a business, right? They're trying to, they want to build a channel and become a YouTuber and all that kind of stuff. But how they know whether or not they're striking a chord and building an audience is through the feedback. And so they are feeding off of that feedback. And when they see a particular video that they've created doing really well, getting lots of comments, lots of hits, lots of forwards, lots of sharing of that content, they go, oh, that struck a chord. I definitely need to do more stuff like that, or I need to engage with my audience and say, wow, what did you really like about that? And what would you like me to do more of? The more I look into this, the more I see that there is a lot of engagement between the creators and the people doing the content. Now, do we see this in the corporate space? No, I don't think we see it as much as we'd like to at all, but we all know that what happens in the real world over time starts to seep into the corporate world sooner or later. So it's inevitable.
And I can speak practically to the courses that I put out. We do the level 1 surveys and all that kind of stuff, and we try to follow up with interviews, talking to the learners and all that, and what do you think of this? And also, when some of that content is actually done in our social network, which we have one internal for us here, we put a wiki page or something like that with a graphic or whatever it is, a course map, whatever it is. We tend to get comments like, this is awesome, do more of this, like that kind of type of comment like that, or oh, there's a typo here, like little comments like that as well. Like, and when we're getting that type of content, if somebody says, or this video that you created is not correct, you need to fix this, or don't do more of this, I'm definitely going to look at that. As a designer myself, I don't want to put out what people consider junk out there, so I am going to address it.
Which is why you would take on or seek out, that kind of instruction. Actually, I think it says something really good about where we are as an industry, that people are, what we used to put out isn't good enough. And actually, what's really heartening to me is people who I feel are new. Well, I say new; they're just younger than me, but people who are new and they're professionals and they've struck out on their own. They may work in a company or an organization or an institution, but they also have their gig on the side because you know how we do. And these people can, they're not discovering things so much as they are encountering some barriers that we maybe encountered in the past, and they're kind of blowing right past them. I maybe in the post notes for this this session, I'll round up a couple names. I think Ashley Chiason, and I'm probably mispronouncing her name, is a good example of that. Some people who frequent the e-learning subreddit or the instructional design subreddit on Reddit are also good examples. People who, they really are out there taking on all aspects of creating distance learning. Without the hang-ups that maybe we encountered. I don't know if that's a matter of, I don't know if that's a matter of them not being, not having the technological limitations that we had, or maybe the state-of-the-art limitations, or maybe just because they've seen things, or they're experiencing different types of media and deciding, I want to make something as good as that. I think and
I think they don't have all the baggage we have, right? People that have gone through the last 20, 25, 30 plus years of instructional design schools and watching the technology change, we come to the table with a boatload of baggage. And you look at these people that are out there creating stuff. and they've got zero instructional design knowledge, skills, even zero idea that it even exists, that there's even a word or a phrase or a thing called instructional design. They're just like, I know something, I'm going to teach people it because I love it. And so they go out there and they do it, and it's good, and yet we sit around and we try to critique it and explain why it was good when they don't care. The learners don't care. They don't care. They just, they just do it, and then they get the feedback, and then they make it better. Exactly. We tend to say, oh, well, it didn't follow Gagne's 9 levels of instruction, so it's not good. And
then and that is a culture thing. It depends on who your CLO is, who your manager is, who your audience is, what company you're in. I am so blessed to be in a company and in an organization where I can actually play with all this kind of stuff instead of just talking about it. I don't just talk about graphics and videos and animations. I put it out there. Does it suck sometimes? Yeah, sometimes I don't have much time to make something amazing out there. The story I thought was good is cheesy. But we fix it,
Yeah.
We experiment, we fix it, we find our audience's sweet spot. How are we going to find out what our audience likes, or what many or most in our audience likes, if we don't put out there things that are different from at the end of this course we shall be able to,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's what I've been talking about for a while now. Is just this iterative design process that I think our industry needs to get better at. And Enzo, it sounds like you're in a great position and you're getting used to it. And maybe you could, submit some presentations to events and whatnot about what it's like to do that. Just do something, put it out there, and then fix it as you go. Right? I mean, it's an interesting way for us to do instructional design, within the corporate space. But I think a lot of people are extremely fearful of doing that, especially in, highly regulated industries and all that kind of stuff. And yes, I know all of the people out there that are listening to this are going to say, well, I wouldn't want my doctor to learn from your first draft, if you're just going to iteratively train them, but that's not what we're talking about, right? That's
never watched Grey's Anatomy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's different, right? There's content that's good for it. There's content that should be more care should be taken and whatnot. But I mean, overall, I think that the fight and the problem that we get into is when we try to become the gatekeepers, right? When we try to say what's wrong and what's good, and we try to put our finger on it and explain why, right? That there's all these rules and these models and these theories around what good instruction should be, and we try desperately to plug everybody's work into these frameworks when it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, if there are people out there learning from poorly designed instruction, but yet they're learning and they're gaining something from it, then maybe it's us that needs to readdress what instruction even is.
Yeah, I think that comes from. Oh, look, that's very meta. I think a lot of that. Am I being is someone showing a broadcast and me being broadcast?
I was going to present a show that we did here, and I wanted to comment on it, so maybe it's already broadcasting it. Oops.
Oh my God.
Be careful, because that is how you open up a dimensional rift.
I know. We've been sucked into some sort of wormhole where it's just my face over and over again. That's no good for anyone.
I don't think everybody saw it on YouTube, though.
Oh, okay. So they just see us freaking out for no reason. All right.
But so let me show you here one thing that we did here, just a sec, to show what we're talking about, a little bit of it.
Okay.
Just a sec. So here is an infographic that I didn't do this myself. I helped write it, and then our graphic designer did it. But it is possible to do it with a simple tool as well. Probably. The idea here was that, and I'll show you in a sec, that we had a new leadership program here at SAP, and it was for up-and-coming leaders, right? We wanted those leaders to stay after the acquisition. A lot of them coming from success factors. We wanted them to stay in the company and see the value that they bring in. So we wanted to invest in them. So there was a unit about me. Who am I as a leader? Testing myself, Myers-Briggs, all kinds of stuff. My leadership styles, talking about that, discussing it in a flipped classroom type of deal. They would watch instructor videos pre-recorded. They would go into the classroom that week and then discuss whatever they were studying and on their own with their colleagues in a class, about 30 of them or so. Very targeted audience there. We had some gamification elements into that and all that. We wanted them to then learn about how they can contribute in their team, collaborate within their teams. So there was a unit about, and that's a 12-week program, so 4 weeks on me, 4 weeks on team. How can I collaborate within my team and ask probing questions or talk, about conflict and conflict resolution, all that kind of stuff. Then the last one was organization, the whole organization unit, where how can I be a better leader at the organization, power of speaking, and all that kind of stuff. And all of those units had lessons along the way. Each week, one lesson. How do we depict that? So we thought about, first of all, we have to recruit these people. We don't have them. We know there's about 30 that we want to target, but they haven't committed. We want them to commit voluntarily to do it and get manager approval to participate in the program, which is 12 weeks of commitment. So how do we do that? So the best way to have them come and sign up is to have them see what is in it for them, right? So I wanted to visually represent what was in it for them, what the program was all about, and in a way that it appealed to that younger generation, right?
Right.
At most, there in Palo Alto, in that area, in the Bay Area. So I applied a visual metaphor to this, which is expedition. They're exploring the future at SAP, their future at SAP, as leaders in general. So we use that as not only as a first infographic to the actual course, the program, but also as a way to recruit them. We pasted this physically on the walls in the office where we were targeting them, and within the first day, we had 20 or something out of the 30 that we were targeting signed up and manager approved, within a few hours, within the first day that we put this out there on physical walls. We printed it. So let me show you what it looks like. Now you see my face. But it's just a simple little infographic here that shows, here you have, week 1, you're going to study key leadership skills, and you're climbing that summit. You're going to have a certain amount of hours per topic and all that. And this is summit about me. This is the summit about the team together. And notice there's there's a visual metaphor that goes with it, right? So we're telling a small little story here with a graphic. To tell a story doesn't have to be a video, right? You can tell a story with text only, right? Remember those text-based games only, right? All you see is text, but there's a story you interact with.
Right.
So it's the story that matters, that it appeals to the audience. You know your audience, you know what the story it is that you're telling, and you work on that story. So here's a visual story with an infographic and all. To show them that first you're going to work on me, then team, then organization, and what you're going to learn throughout this, the whole thing, and the types of work you're going to be doing. You're going to win prizes for quizzes, special assignments, one-on-one coaching, teamwork, achievements, and all that. So we put this out there. The first day we already had recruited people. We had feedback on it. The graphic, there were some things that people liked and did not like about the graphic, so we changed those, within the same day. So iterative, we don't see that, but we were ready to actually iterate on this. So not only we put it out there, but we made it better based on feedback that we received. So we have to be open to doing this, to getting it out there. Are people used to seeing infographics all over their office walls as a recruitment tool for them and as a summary of what the course is all about? I'm not sure. I don't think so. But let's do it. What does it cost? A few hours to develop the infographic, and we already have the materials in the program set up. Does it work? It didn't work at first. We had a few words there that didn't please certain people in HR. Let's change it. And put it out,
I'm gonna be a jerk, Enzo. So, I mean, I don't know if that even needs to come with a preamble. But I'm going to be a jerk because I think if Connie Malamed was here, she would say, pardon me, she would say that this is a graphic, but is this an infographic per se? Or is it an info poster? I think it's a really useful info poster for the purposes of what you were talking about. Man, I kind of wish she was here because she would say that much better and probably nicer than I would.
I'd hate to come up with a new term, poster.
I know.
But I think, I'll defend that. I'll defend my stance. That is, it is an infographic because there is a lot of information about the course there. Just what we thought they needed to know to buy into the course. There is information.
Here's the bottom line. Why does it have to have a name? Right? It's an image. It's a visual that's effective. Why does it matter if you call it one thing versus calling it something else? Right?
Brent, then we can put it on our LinkedIn, and then.
If we put it a name, sometimes if we put a name to it, it's easier to discuss it, right? So what are we talking about? A visual?
I know we have to, and I guess it's kind of a rhetorical question. That's the part that always frustrates me. I like having our conversations when we get very specific around what it is, as opposed to arguments over the semantics of, what do we call it and whatnot.
Right.
Although sometimes I like those as well because then you kind of get into the silliness that our industry does.
Right.
A new term. Let's jump on it. Yeah, let's go.
Well, it's great for marketing, that's for sure. Hey, listen, you guys, we got to wrap up, or at least I have to drop off if you guys want to keep going today.
No, we got to go.
I gotta. Yeah, we gotta go back to work. I've been over to the side here. There've been emails that have been building up. We're like, we're patient, but we're gonna come for you.
And Marvin already dropped off, but
Marvin had to go to work too.
Let's bring him back.
And let's do more. Let's go ahead and schedule for 2 weeks from now at 12:30 Eastern, Brent.
Yeah.
12:30 Eastern. All right, I'll give it a shot. I can't promise anything, but I'll.
All right. We'll follow. So what day is it? Today's the 13th. So
Friday the 13th. Yes.
So it'll be February 27th. Friday, February 27th. We'll be back in town. One day only. Get your tickets now.
Stay safe there on Friday the 13th. Don't cross any black cats or walk under any ladders or anything.
Walk under ladders. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, guys, I'm dropping off. Take care.
Take it easy.